Adam, welcome back to
Hey
Face. How
Dale,
are
can you
you?
you got me there?
Got you. So it's interesting. We talked before the Fed, so we could go over some of the stuff we talked about before the Fed. Um, I'll share my screen
You want to
unless there
share
was
yours?
something you want, unless there was something you wanted to
You're
share.
you got the charts nicely teed up there, Dale.
Okay. All right. So we were talking before the Fed. Anything surprise you? We were talking about things to fade. Um, Everything faded for a day at least. But the only thing that really had follow through from that fade was yields. And
Yeah, well,
wondering what
I
your
said 50, right? Like you asked, put me on the
yeah
spot. I
you
said 50. We
yeah
got 50 right.
yeah
But it wasn't, that it's getting pretty tough to trade Fed day. I mean, there weren't a lot of moves that you could have caught, even with the news on that one. To your point on tens, they've been climbing, and I think we're pricing out the recession trade. I think at 360 or down towards 350, 360, you're pricing in a recession, right?
yeah
And I think yields are climbing because the market's saying, okay, we're going to take away a bit of the recession trade here and we're pricing in a soft landing. And I think that's really been the trade since the day after the Fed. That afternoon of the Fed was just a brutal one. And the market's just
okay
taking Powell for his word to say we want to preserve the strength of the economy or maintain the strength of the economy, I think was the exact word he used. And the market's saying, you know what, maybe he might just do it.
okay. So I know that you think that long term uh, you'd be looking for a break to buy bonds, right?
Yeah, it's gone. I mean, it's gone a little too far, a little too fast, right? You go back to July bonds. I mean, pretty incredible rally, 2 months straight.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think one was pricing out inflation, and two pricing in. Yeah, if we stretch that out, one was pricing in the end of sort of the inflationary era, that kind of first leg, and then the last leg, you're kind of thinking the Fed was behind the curve. Now market's not quite so sure, but well, where should you be in tens? 380, 380, 390 seems about right. Like maybe test four. I think there'll be a lot of buyers at four.
That's
So
where, yeah,
it's
I like those targets. And that's, exactly what the tens measure if and they're starting to break out through one of the moving averages, all moving averages here on the four. So, you basically go 360 to 380, closes over 380, you got 4%.
and that's China, right, today? I mean, that's got to
Yeah,
be China. There's no other news. China's stimulating. China's been exporting deflation for a while.
right.
It's been a drag on the global economy compared to expectations anyway. And now you've got China, the market thinking, all right, we got some monetary action today. Maybe we'll get some more fiscal action behind it. Still a couple more days to go this week in China. And then it's a holiday next week in China. And you're thinking, wow, maybe we are kind of early cycle here if China's going to get things going. And that's kind of where we're at right now. And it's kind of Pollyanna, right? To say we're in a good spot here in the economy, but that's what the market is trying to do. I mean, it can tip pretty easily, I think, but the
Uh-huh.
US is in a better spot than most other places. And even something like Canada, which I think is in a much tougher spot than the US, it hasn't really rolled over in a sort of disorderly way. I mean, there's a recession here, I think now, but it's not like a brutal recession and nothing that cutting 200 and 250 basis points can't fix. And
Yeah,
the
you
Fed's
know
got
what?
that ammunition too.
Yeah, and you described a lower USD CAD as a soft landing trade. Can you explain to our viewers what you mean by that?
Right. I mean, and especially with China working, or maybe potentially, listen, China's burned everyone so many times, but yeah, the Canadian dollar is pro-cyclical currency. So anytime you have a stronger global growth, you'll see better oil prices, minerals, metals prices, and you're just going to see more trade, and Canada benefits from all those things. And it's kind of a bit of a lever trade on the U.S. economy as well. So, there's a lot. I think there's a lot to worry about on the domestic front outside of the cycle that we're in, and that rate
Yeah.
cuts can't quite fix. But that would be the trade in dollar CAD if you like it. I'd probably prefer about five different ways to play a soft landing, starting with just commodities.
Yeah. Okay. Um, do you have what narrative? Because I need a narrative. I could probably get blown out of the trade anyway. I'm trying longs down here. All right, Adam. Yeah, I think that this was ABC and this is ABC, and we have one more wave up in Canada towards 37. What fundamental narrative would support that this kind of move?
Well, Canada's
And then,
uniquely weak. I'm as bearish on Canada as I've been, and it's housing is a real big problem here. And then on top of that, I think it's like long term Canada's economy is impaired. Um, Immigration is no longer going to happen in Canada at the levels it was. Canada GDP per capita GDP Canada has been negative for 6 quarters. Um, And so it really just immigration has fueled all the growth in Canada and propped up a lot of asset prices.
okay,
And that's just coming to an end. I don't know if it's not exactly a cyclical story, but the domestic picture is poor. And then if you want to look at the global growth story, I mean, it can tip, right? It can really tip. And you think, okay, yeah, the Fed's cutting, but you're still at, well above 4% Fed funds. So it's pretty restrictive, and the Bank of Canada is way behind the curve. They should have been cutting 50 long before now. They might actually come and cut 50 now, but I think it's too late.
okay. Um, yen, we talked about the US dollar yen being pretty tightly correlated with the 10-year chart. So if the 10-year continues higher, we might get more now that every amateur became a yen expert
Huh.
after a 2000 handle decline.
Well,
And
volatility really gets people excited, and it is. It's a great trade, dollar yen this year, and that's it. I mean, it's as simple as that. If you're taking out a recession in the U.S. now, you can probably comfortably price Fed funds bottom 3%. Um, and hang on to that, and you probably get a drift higher. Especially you have, I think, this weekend, the LDP in Japan will pick a new leader, which will be the new prime minister. And of course, they're not an independent central bank, and they're saying there's no need to hike rates there. And I'm kind of I believe they're right.
yeah,
Um, that they don't. I mean, it's not like 25 basis points is going to make much of a difference in Japan anyway. But so you have the US maybe not cutting as much, Japan not hiking as much, and so you get a bit better picture. But it's kind of data point to data point. I mean, US manufacturing is weak. We saw that again in the data yesterday. Not a big part of the economy, and services looks pretty strong. And then this is your China trade here, right, Aussie?
yeah,
Um,
it looks like a breakout to me.
well, you would have liked a little more on this China stimulus news today, but it's held up. I mean, RBA obviously a factor today. Rates that remain on hold for the time being. This is kind of working towards a rate cut, and that's obviously coming. Looks like the damage isn't as bad in Australia as Canada from high rates, and they didn't hike rates as high. I think it was
Yeah,
probably a mistake in the long term. But yeah, the Aussies sort. I mean, how can you argue with that chart? Like you said, it's moving in the right direction.
yeah,
But it's
um,
really like China. I mean, China's got everyone so burned, right? Like we're
yeah. I
here.
know the
If they would have
reopening
done these
trade.
moves like coming out of COVID, where we're at now in terms of monetary policy, it'd be a different world. But it
Yeah,
was pretty big move on the monetary side today. And we've seen this before though. And everybody's burned. It's cheap. It's been cheap for a while. And like look, 4% moves in China stocks overnight. It's big. And I think it's the only story that matters right now is China. It's just hard to get a handle on China. Nobody has a handle on China. It's opaque. The
China
data
doesn't
isn't
have a handle.
trustworthy.
China
Uh,
doesn't have a handle on China.
yeah, and sentiment is a hard thing to turn around there. Some pretty big moves on mortgages, but you have a lot like house prices have just been obliterated there. And in the U.S., how long did that take to turn around from the
Couple,
financial crisis? Six
at
years?
least, yeah, at least, took a few years to bottom. before it stabilize.
Yeah, and I mean, and before money came back in.
Yeah,
But you know, equities, I mean, Chinese equities can go. They're very cheap. And yeah,
okay.
copper doing a bit better today. So the
That
market
natural,
believes it, but
yeah, the
natty,
natural
yeah.
gas trade hit its objective. Um, where yet the dollar can't get a bid. I was thinking that we might have a shot to rally to clean out the stop there first, but it's not acting that way,
Yeah, we're highs of
even
the day
with
in the
higher
euro just
yields.
now.
Yeah,
Sterling and the euro highs of the day right now. And I think that's part of a China trade too. People forget how much Europe exports to China. It's a big part of
that's
their
true. True.
economy.
Yeah,
So you know, a lot of things can turn on China, and the euro is certainly one of them. I'm not a bull
cable.
on the euro. We had the IFO data out today. It was terrible. I mean, I can get the argument that the euro could squeeze higher because everyone hates it, but
Yeah, maybe
that's just
that's
not
it.
a kind of trade I like to make.
Well, EG has really been directional, so cable's been the outperformer. Um, and the news out of the UK isn't great either.
I, I don't think Bailey has really his thumb on the pulse at all. I don't get the overly hawkish stance there. I mean, they seem to come around and make the right moves eventually. But you know, they're the high yielder now with the Fed cutting. So I just don't get that. That's not an economy that should be the high yielder.
Yeah, it's
And
a bullet.
and
I mean, it'd be hard to reach for it up here, but
like the model
it,
that you think about, I mean, it's still like 130. Like you think of 160 in the old days, always at 160.
yeah,
And you know, two long before that. But you think the model I'm thinking of right now is that the currencies are going to be punished who don't cut enough right now. I mean, the bond market, you look at break evens across the board are low.
yeah,
Oh, you know, we're pricing in low inflation next year, the year after. And they're saying that the central banks that don't cut enough now are going to cut more later as they fall behind the curve. And I think that's where you eventually find the UK.
okay. Now I know this is something you're very bullish, but you believe it's a 2025 or six trade.
2026 trade. It is a 2026 trade. And
Okay,
it's going to be a wonderful one. And you know, how early do you want to be? I don't mind being early. And that's pretty nice response today. Like those are the kind
yeah,
of things you're looking for. Thinking,
yeah,
okay, China, copper believes in China.
yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of a knee
Aussie,
jerk, a bit of a
yeah.
knee jerk today, right? I don't want to get too excited about China. You know, it's one of those things you see these 6% moves in a lot of
Well,
Chinese stocks, you know, 3% copper, and you kind of are tempted to pile in to try to still be early. But even I think 3 months from now, no matter what China does, it's still going to be early if they actually get moving. And being early in China has been just a disaster for the last couple years.
okay,
But it is, I saw the Bank of America fund manager survey. I think short China was the second most crowded trade after long mag 7. So it's
oh, so
hated.
there's
And
plenty to squeeze.
there it is. It is.
Okay, there's all right.
You know, you've
Yeah,
got an
everyone.
election. I suppose like Harris is probably a good one for China if that's if you want, if you think that's what's going to happen. Though I
Why do you
don't,
think Harris would be better for China
well,
than
I
Trump?
just think
Because
that,
of all the tariffs that Trump wants to throw on
yeah,
them?
the alternative. I mean, I don't think there's any China friendly policy coming out of the US on either side, but I think just on the possibility of sort of more tariffs,
Okay.
uh, and more like haphazard, maybe. He's a very
Ad,
unpredictable guy.
Adam, what are your thoughts about the escalation in the Middle East?
I mean, the market, it's surprised. The market hasn't cared at all.
Right, that's
You know,
what
I
I
think you're
mean.
just pricing in endless conflict there. Not even gold. I mean, nothing moved. So uh, I'm kind of happy to ignore it because I'm not sure that there's an edge.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Uh, in fact, that's pro. Who cares? Just trade and pull in pips.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
think you
If Iran, Israel get, I think the markets kind of said they don't want to fight. I mean, they haven't done anything about that assassination, right, in Iran.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like they don't want to fight. So, I mean, if
Well,
Lebanon had oil, it'd be a different story.
I heard they might be forced to fight if Hezbollah is on the verge of being decapitated
Well,
because
I think
that's
they
their
already have been
that's
decapitated.
huh.
I think they already have been decapitated, no?
Well, that's what people are worried about because it's an insurance policy for Iran.
I mean, I think if you're Iran at this point, you gotta, or Hezbollah or whatever, you gotta imagine that like every policy you had was bad, or every kind of your spies, you've been so badly infiltrated
Yeah,
that you almost have to go back to the drawing board and play defense.
yeah.
Um,
Okay. I
I
mean,
don't,
that's the
I
way it
don't know.
looks. But I mean, this is the heaviest bombardment since
It is.
2006.
It is, and I mean they're talking about a ground war. I mean, I don't know. Listen, I don't know how it ends.
Adam, do you get any sniffings besides like real, radical people looking for, things like the dollar won't be accepted for oil payments or any kind of oil embargo that could result from the escalation in the Middle East? Iran? Do you think Iran would retaliate, even though it would hurt them to make it difficult to transport oil through the Straits of Hormuz?
I mean, at this point, I honestly think like Israel could bomb Iranian oil production and Iran wouldn't do anything. I think they
Okay,
just
wow.
feel like they must be overmatched at this moment. I mean, I guess they're getting into bed with Russia, so maybe they can develop some weapons or whatnot. But
Okay, you're very sanguine about the whole situation.
I mean,
So,
it just looks like they don't want to escalate, and I don't think Israel wants to do that right now. But I'm not. I don't think the market's gone way beyond freaking out over these headlines. Now, you know what? It can change pretty quick in geopolitics, and emotion gets involved, and somebody in Israel gets killed, and yeah, I don't know. I just
maybe
haven't.
it's
It's hard to see any kind of conclusion to any of this. But gold, I was asked about gold. I was talking with Kitco on Friday, and they said, okay, make a bearish case for gold. And the one that it's hard. It's pretty hard the way it's been going. Everything's working, and I
yeah,
saw some flows out of China and India. They're just incredible. And the de-dollarization or reserve diversification trade is pretty impressive. Rate cutting. It's all working for gold, right? But China
yeah,
has been the big buyer. And the case for gold, part of it was Chinese investors couldn't put their money anywhere but gold because nothing else
right.
worked. And now, if the stock market gets going in China, I don't know, maybe that's some competition for gold. And that was one of the things I came up with. Well, China does stimulus, maybe some of that money comes out of gold. Um, then again, I mean, the problem is the currency might suffer in China as they cut rates. So if you're a Chinese domestic investor, you maybe want to get into more gold. So I don't know. That was one of the things that I thought, well, maybe that could turn gold, and it's not exactly strong today.
Yeah. How about China itself needing to sell some gold? I mean, they stopped buying. I mean, that's what they've been promoting. So, is the next step that they're going to come in and buy more? Or
Uh,
could they just wouldn't take much.
I think
Just
they're going to
any
buy more.
news that they just sold a little, I think would shake
Yeah,
up the market, don't you?
I mean, it would be funny if they wanted. I mean, they want to add more to reserves. I think it's pretty clear that they have pretty small reserves, and they're trying to build them. They stopped buying, what was it, 2,000, 2,300. Um,
Yeah.
they should have kept up buying, I mean, given the price now, but
Well, they've been
uh,
buying for years,
well, they stopped in May,
years and
right?
years.
And it was pretty impressive. When they stopped in May, I sold gold. I mean, that was a pretty negative headline,
Yeah.
and gold held up.
Yeah,
It went
that's what
down
I
for a
mean.
week or two.
Okay, so them not buying gold caused pretty good sell-off.
Yeah,
Can you
that back
imagine
in
what would
May, I
happen
don't
if
know.
they
Chart doesn't
came
go to
in
me.
and China sold some gold? And they would do that just on a small basis because they buy their own the break that they created.
Well, that would be, like there's a pretty good case to be made that China said they stopped buying gold. There's a pretty good case to hide what you're doing. I mean, that's the optimal move is to hide what you're doing, obscure what you're doing, or like you
Yeah,
said,
why are they
active,
announcing
like
it?
sort of disinformation. Because China, if people figured out China needs to buy,
Yeah,
like 1 million ounces of gold, and everyone just front runs it, right? Is a suboptimal policy that pre-announced that. And
yeah,
now they're saying we're not buying, but maybe they're buying in secret.
yeah, it could be. Make your money in a closet, someone once told me.
Or yeah,
I
announce you're gonna sell. I mean, that's a little bit much to announce you're gonna sell and then buy it, but I don't know. All's
Well,
fair.
they did that in the grain markets all the time. They,
They
anytime you heard China was interested in buying some grain, the traders would run it up. They'd sell into it. So, you know, they use that kind of technique. And
Yeah, like Charlie's saying,
look,
they're
it's
trying to get our
used
treasury.
everywhere. It's used here
Everybody's
too.
trying to
But
get our treasuries.
buy the rumor, sell the fact on good earnings, all that stuff. So, one other thing I wanted to ask you, as long as we're on the topic, and we're on opposite sides of the coin on this one. I'm looking for the gold silver ratio to decline. You said that you thought it would go the other way, and I want to know why you think that. You're saying you were looking for it
Well,
to head higher.
if you look
Uh,
at some of the kind of long-term peak, I'm not a big gold silver ratio guy, but if you look at some of the long-term peaks or the ends of bull markets in gold or precious metals, they tend to have a spike in this ratio, right?
like this.
Right. And so we haven't had the spike yet. And so
Okay.
maybe it ends in that. I mean, I'm not saying it can't go down to 60 or sorry, 75 or something like that. And silver is pretty compelling catch-up trade.
Yeah.
But I'm like a werewolf. I'm allergic to
All right.
silver.
All right. All right. And so we've covered the dollar pretty much, and we've covered yields. Why don't we wrap it with risk? Where's your head at on the S&Ps,
Well,
Adam?
listen, I mean, I just, it's so annoying to say the soft landing trade. Like the soft landing trade is the trade right now. And it's the soft, like it's such a weak trade because everyone's kind of been in it for a while. Stocks are record. It's a bit tired. I'm going to cheerlead the Fed. I kind of hate everything about it, but this is the right trade right now. And small caps outperform early in the cycle, rate cutting cycle. Um, we like to think as stocks doing really well lately, but they haven't done that well outside of a lot of big names. I mean, AI is a secular trend, and I can get behind that. Um, but I like the small caps. I heard what you were saying earlier about the Nasdaq, maybe on a bit of a reversal. I mean, yeah, things can come down a bit from here.
Yeah, I'm just looking for it to breathe.
Hey, Ryan, I think you mentioned it's still lagging. Yeah, I think it is still lagging. I think it's
Oh yeah, I
probably
mean,
with China coming along, though. And I don't think it has to catch up all the way. Like you can't make up that gap because the Mag 7, it's a whole industry they're about to dominate. And you have Microsoft buying a nuclear power plant essentially. I mean, they're all in on AI.
yeah.
That's they're not dabbling. That's a
Yeah.
crazy move.
Well, I'll
So
tell you what, if we get a breakout, so during interviews, sometimes I get some ideas, and this is a pretty important area here. So, if we break out here, it would measure new highs. We'll see. I think we'll get a pullback first before that happens, if
yeah,
it's
you were
going to
pretty
happen.
bullish on stocks last time we talked before the Fed. That was
Yeah,
the
I'm
right
still
view.
thinking melt up. Uh, I think they hold things together through the election. Some of the guys I know looking for highs in the S&Ps in that range from, I don't know, 58 and a half to 61. Some of them think we're going to peak in October and sell off hard into the election.
I
And
mean,
then,
you had
I heard
like
a very interesting thing. you know what's great about FinTwit? You know, you end up with some followers that really have great insights that share them with you, you know, and they're good traders. You meet people who are good traders on FinTwit. And this one guy said, Dale, here's a narrative for you. Remember when Trump was elected, Adam, and we were limit down that
I
night?
listen, buddy. I was all over that trade on buying
All
that
right.
dip when they swept both houses. It was wild.
Yeah. Yeah. So how he put in a pretty good low for the market there, right?
Yeah.
What if when if he wins and it's you know, it'll look close, but maybe it's not a landslide, that the market will rally on that news and put in a high because it'd be like full circle from putting in an important low, which I don't even know where the S&P was when he was elected, but what 3,500? I don't know, but it had a
Yeah,
great
it was
run.
that night. It was that night of it, and I
Yeah,
think I remember who was it? It was like one of those old timey traders too, like Leon Cooperman or something. Was bought like just
no, it
bought
wasn't
massive
him. It
amounts.
was uh,
Yeah, the guy who's
Icon.
in all the trouble with the
Icon.
short icon. Yeah,
Icon.
he's. I mean that
He came.
crook.
He left the
He.
party and
Yeah.
went home and started. You know, I guess he
I
didn't
was
have
writing
a
about it.
mobile
I
app.
mean, I was writing about, and it was actually pretty similar when the Democrats swept as well. I remember it was that Senate. Remember there was the Senate runoff in Georgia,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then when they had all three houses, you think, man, that's a lot of stimulus coming,
yeah,
and it was it was pretty good. Um, and that as well. I mean, stock's been going up for a lot of reasons, but I think it's that split. It's this sort of Tea Party trade, right? Like the last time the U.S. economy had a really bad go was the Tea Party, when everybody cared about deficits for a couple years there. And
yeah,
the risk is we go back to that. Now, I don't really see it because I don't think the public really loves that trade. But at
yeah,
some point, you got to stop running 7% of GDP deficits.
yeah. Well, the market will probably force that discipline on us because there won't be. You know, right now there's plenty of participation in our bond market. I mean, most auctions are going pretty good.
I mean, a year
Who's
ago, people
buying?
were talking, right? Wasn't Rick Santelli on TV there every day saying nobody's going to buy bonds anymore? And now here
Yeah.
we are, tens back to 379.
Well, you know, his best trade was leaving the pit to become a financial commentator.
That's a lot
Isn't
easier.
that a good trade?
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, what do you want to wrap it with, my trading warrior
Well,
brother?
listen, I've talked about these things, and tomorrow I'm doing a webinar at Forex Live on some of these things about this time, and we'll talk about sort of the themes in the global economy. I got a lot of charts to go with some of these things I've been talking about. So if
What
anybody,
time?
it's 9 Eastern, so right now, 24 hours from now,
Okay.
and yeah, we'll talk about China. We're going to digest some of these moves, and yeah, I don't want to step on your toes or anything like that, but.
Oh, no, no,
I
you're
don't
not.
do these very often, and so I got a
So
nice little
a
mostly
rare
teed up, a little bit of work to do.
yeah, special situation report, like, you know, because of what China's doing. That's
Exactly.
great,
So
Adam. So,
so
you know, I encourage people to check you out there tomorrow.
yeah, you'll
That
see the
see
link. If
that.
you just go to our site, you'll see yeah, I'll put up something there. You'll see the ads. If you have your ads turned on, it's all there.
Okay. All right, buddy. Well, thanks for hanging out with me for a half an hour today.
I love it. It goes by so quickly, Dale. And then we got some data out here.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
just solid home sales price from the US. Nothing spectacular, but
yeah. That's I'm going to grab a bottle of champagne to pop the cork, bro.
all right. Not a
All right,
bad.
happy days are here again.
Yeah, I mean,
With
I hate to be the soft landing guy, but I don't know. It's the trade right now.
yeah,
Until the
but
data's bad. I think you just ride it until, non-farm payrolls. But then you got a Fed put too. It's a pretty powerful combo.
let's just call it the Sully economy. That was a soft landing of
Soft
all
landing.
time. Huh?
I haven't seen that movie yet.
Captain Sully landing we have here.
I'm gonna
All
watch
right.
this Francis Ford Coppola one there this weekend. I heard it's kind of a mess, the one he's got out with. So I'm looking forward
What's
to
it
that.
about?
It's like a city. They try to rebuild New York after a disaster, and someone wants to build a great city, and the other guy wants to do it the old ways. And it's like about corruption and
Oh,
civilization, I guess. I don't know. He spent
oh,
all his own money on it, Francis Ford. He spent like 120 million of his own money. Didn't get any financing because no one would finance it. And it's going to be a total box office disaster because the movie's a mess, they say.
huh,
But I don't know. Sometimes I
yeah.
want to watch a disaster. So
I tell you, male pride can be very expensive later in life when you're not at the top of your game and you're still in denial that you are.
you know what? That's probably going to be
What?
the message of this movie because he's one of the greats, but
Yeah, he is, you know.
not anymore.
Yeah. So anyway, please spare me spare me that you know, that type of trip. Spare me. Maybe
I'll let
I'll
you know
have
how it
some.
goes. Let you know.
All right, buddy. So
All right.
good
Have a good
luck
day
on
trading.
yeah, good luck tomorrow,
Thanks
Adam.
everyone for
Everyone
having me.
keep in touch with Adam. Attend his webinar tomorrow. I'd like to know what he thinks is happening, see some charts about China. And at least he's going to be skeptical and show both cases. So,
Yeah, we have
um,
lots of time for Q&A
all right.
tomorrow too.
All right.
All
So
right.
that's a wrap. That's a wrap, everyone. Thank you, Adam. I'll get a
Okay.
hold of you. We'll talk again in December or sooner.
Right on. Yeah, I can't
Uh,
wait.
all right, brother. And that's a wrap for us, everyone. I hope you have a good turnaround Tuesday. So far, I'm taking heat in gold. So might be wrong for turnaround Tuesday. We'll see. So good hunting, everyone, the rest of the day. And NASDAQ, maybe that one will work. Have a great day. Don't just count your pips, count your blessings, everybody. And I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow. Take it easy. All right, Laura. See you, Joe. You're very welcome. Yeah, Carol Icahn bought the calls. All right, Andrew. Don't just count your pips, count your blessings. We'll see you tomorrow. So you could be in with the team in 11 minutes on the morning edge. If you can't, sign up, take advantage of things that are on sale. And right now, ForexAnalytix is on sale. Buy the dip because it's got very good relative strength. Adios.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with Forex Analytics. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.